You're listening to Live Wild Radio, the part-time adventure podcast.
Join us as we explore how outdoor adventures build mind, body, and spirit.
Before we get to the show today, we've got our first real partner sponsor, Great Lakes Girya. So Girya is the Russian word for kettlebell. They have kettlebells in stock, which I know is a big issue in a lot of places. Really high quality bells, the Russian hardstyle, that range from as little as 4 kilos up to 96 kilos. Really love the quality. Handles are great. The part that's great is we got you a 5% discount. So if you go to greatlakesgirya.com, if you're here in Canada, or in the United States, it's us.greatlakesgirya.com. And use the promo code LiveWild at checkout. You'll get 5% off. And in addition to kettlebells, they have barbells. They have squat racks. They have dumbbells, maces, weighted clubs, chin-up bars, whole collection of gear. So don't forget, if you want to get in shape, don't count on the gyms. They keep having to close. So set your gym up at home now and save some money on it.
Welcome back, everybody, to Live Wild Radio. I am so excited because today I'm having a little bit of a reunion with somebody I haven't talked to in I've been almost 30 years. So Kris Konway, welcome.
You jumped out of an airplane and your parachute didn't open properly. And you're still here.
So do you want the story about how that happened?
Let's, because that's I don't have that one on my list.
So I am mostly to blame for that accident, and I'm mostly to blame for surviving it in a way. So I have about 700 skydives at this point, and this is in June of 2019. And I was just finally certified as a professional skydiver from the USPA. So I can basically fly my parachute into stadiums, public events, and land anywhere I choose, provided I'm with a team and it's sanctioned and NOTAM's been filed and things of that nature. And before I did the jump, just to keep it a little bit shorter, I changed the closing loop, which is the loop that keeps the pin for my parachute together inside the deployment bag in the bottom of my container. And that day was about 2 weeks after I changed the loop, and the knot and everything that keeps it all together stretched. So the tension on the pin loosened to a degree that allowed the pin to actually wiggle itself loose after all the jostling around in the plane. We were in a really old military plane, and I'm sitting down on metal seats and I'm on the metal floor, and then I slide across the floor. I've got a smoke canister on my left foot. I've got a flag on my chest. I've got a full camera rig set up because I fly tandem videos sometimes. And I have all these things going on, which ultimately, in hindsight, was too much. It was my first paid professional demo, and I really didn't need to be doing so many things with the camera, the flag, the smoke, all these things. I should have just done a simple jump. This is my first one, and bought beer and be done with it. But there was other jumpers who were higher performance canopies, and they didn't want to take anything that caused drag, whether it's even a smoke canister or a flag. So I said, okay, I'm rated to do this. Let's do it. But at altitude, once I got to the door, the pin had wiggled itself loose to a point where once I exited the plane, it basically, the pin slipped out, the deployment bag came out, flew up between my legs, and then opened in a very, improper position. You should be belly to earth before you deploy. And I was, back to earth, basically looking up at the plane. And when it came out, the line set for the parachute wrapped around the camera on my head and got me kind of tangled up in this mess of line sets. And immediately I knew it was a bit of a mess. So I just right away, I'm not going to waste any time here. Basic safety rules, get rid of that parachute. I cut away and I felt myself release and start to go back to, belly to earth. But I didn't know that there was still a line captured by the camera that was on my head, which was GoPro. And we always foster the idea that, having a camera in your head is a responsibility that, takes a lot of experience, and you should be doing it as a newer jumper. But here I am, 4 canopy courses. I've got, a coach rating, 700 skydives, a pro rating. And these things can happen to the best of us with a lot of experience. And I'm not even that experienced in the grand scheme of things. But once it came out and got tangled, and I went to my reserve, the reserve came out, got tangled on the camera as well, ripped the camera off my helmet, broke the plastic. The camera slid up the line set and basically cinched my reserve closed, about 3/4 closed. So now I have like a half open reserve, and I have this spiraling main parachute still attached because it never fully cut away because it was attached to my attached to my camera helmet, which I couldn't tell because it's held together with a chin strap. And when it's your first malfunction, everything's happening so fast, you're not sure what to do. You're just trying to, keep yourself together. So I basically glided myself to the ground, sort of stopping it from becoming a streamer where I had no nylon slowing me down. If I had had a streamer, I'd have hit the ground and died. And I credit my canopy piloting skills and my emergency procedures to help get me to the ground in as slow a position as possible. If you watch the video, I've shown you my legs are sort of dangling left to right. And I landed, luckily, like 10 feet from a fence, a tree stump, a swing set, and a road on soft grass. And I landed ankle, hip, and head in that order. So I sort of did this sort of what they call a parachute landing fall, because your feet are supposed to touch and you're supposed to roll. And the way I fell and the way I hit allowed me to absorb a lot of the energy. And, if I'd landed feet first, my femur would have went through my pelvis or anything of that nature. If I landed head first, which would have been impossible because the parachute's above my head, I would have probably died. So there was a little bit of luck, a little bit of skill. And, I hit and luckily only, I say this lightly, I only cracked my L4 and my vertebra, which, I went in the hospital and they just, fused my spine from 3 to 5. And I feel like nothing's ever happened. So I'm thankful for everyone that helped me and helped me recover from that. So that's the abbreviated version. So many things happened in a skydive.
Mm-hmm.
So what were you thinking in your head? Was it just problem solving, or was it like, holy shit? Like,
there was a holy shit moment when I was worried that both parachutes would get tighter together and become a streamer that can't resist air, and I would hit the ground and die. Yeah. And then, and that's where I was trying to prevent. And once I knew I was in this position where I was sort of semi-stable, but I was just sort of flailing back and forth as I went down, I knew I was going slow enough that I wasn't going to die. I knew that my summer was ruined. I'm going to be in rehab. I'm not going to see my girlfriend tonight. And I was dating this girl who, came to my rescue in the hospital. And, I just knew that I wasn't going to see her. It wasn't going to be the summer that I envisioned with her. And that was the most heartbreaking part of it. And I'd only just recently had a friend who also had a much easier crash landing with a fully inflated parachute. And she's paralyzed and was just in the Paralympics. So all these things are going through my mind. And then next thing you know, bam, I hit the ground. And it was the most jarring. If you've ever hit your head and you have that high pitch sort of like frequency in your ears, it was like that times 100. And I just immediately was like, oh my God, I can still wiggle my feet. I was on all fours, just trying to get my breath. And people were there right to help me make sure I was okay and get an ambulance over, which was fortunately already there too. But I did no real damage. Surprisingly, I got fairly lucky with how I landed. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
So what does that make you, how does that make you feel like after that's happened? Does that make you go, oh,
you know what? One of the proudest things I will say is that even though most people have a near-death experience and they suddenly make this transition to life and they go, I'm going to start traveling and doing all these things, I've already been doing them. I haven't really changed my methodology and lifestyle. I still eat clean. I still, work out. I still play hockey. I play baseball. I'm skydiving. I'm wakeboarding, wake surfing. I'm doing it all. Like, I have no regrets. I'm super happy that I'm not one of those guys that said, oh man, I've been doing life wrong and I need to make a change because I almost died. And that's something I don't feel like a lot of people have said. I feel like a lot of people who've had near-death experiences, whether it's a plane crash, car crash, motorcycle, they've made some change or they've suddenly had a new outlook on life. And I really don't feel all that different.
Yeah, because I think a lot of it will come into the thing because you had a near-death experience because you were living life well. I had a near-death experience, so I need to start living life well.
Yeah. But then I don't have any kids, and I've never been married. And although, I was dating a girl who I was ready to start a family with, I think I just didn't. I think part of me sort of realized that maybe I don't need to have a family, and maybe I don't need to find the white picket fence marriage. Maybe that's just, not for me. Maybe I'm one of those people of the, 1 out of 50 who just needs to just live life and help others and, raise a nephew and be a father figure similar to how I was raised, which was not by my real father, it was by my mom's boyfriend and a neighbor. Surprisingly, like, who has a neighbor raise you? Like, it's absurd, right? It was my lifestyle and how I was brought up. I feel like sort of maybe subconsciously is, directing me in the same path. And it just feels maybe more natural than following, the stereotypical, path of having a family, having a wife, having kids, and doing, what most people consider the goal in life is to have a family.
Well, I think a lot of that is very much societal goals, right? As to what's the right thing to do. But I have to admit, there are times that we've done our adventures and I'm like, and it's all foreign to me, right? Whether it be, mountain climbing or rock climbing or something I'm scared of because I'm afraid of heights, but I've been doing it. And there are times you're like, you know what, if I die, but I have children, right? That's the sad thing. But you're doing something that you love. You've lived fully. I don't know. There's part of you that says that. Anyway.
And I have said to a few of my friends, I'm like, if something tragic happened and I died, like, I feel like I would want everyone to go, good for that guy. He totally had a great time. Sure, he died, but like, you can't say he didn't do a ton of shit when he was living life.
Yeah.
And I want to be remembered positively, not like, oh, so tragic, he's gone. Like, no, I want people to say, that guy had a great time and like celebrate it more than anything, more than be upset about it.
Well, because the fact is, obviously, those of us that do like adventure sports, and obviously things like skydiving, rock climbing, mountain climbing, they might have a little bit higher risk. But most of them, we have safety protocols, right? It's something went wrong, and then something else went wrong kind of thing for you.
Yeah.
Whereas we run into the thing, like it's the same thing with climbing. Yeah, a rock can fall and what have you. But we've climbed all over North America. And the worst thing you've ended up with was like a tweaked ankle for a day or two.
Yeah.
Right. So it's yes, maybe,
it's probably safer than mountain biking.
Yeah. But an insurance actuarial could give you, the breakdown of how much more dangerous it is than average.
Yeah.
The fact is like just driving in traffic is dangerous. We just do it all the time. So we're just used to it, It's
the most common analogy I use for people. They're like, oh my God, you almost died skydiving. So you're not going to do that again, are you? And I'm like, yeah. Would you get back in the car if you had a car accident? And although, 3% of the population might not, including one of my friends who was in a serious car accident, she hasn't driven since. 99% of us are going to just get back in the car and keep going. And at the end of the day, statistically speaking, driving to the drop zone is more dangerous than the skydive itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the fact of it, statistically speaking. Just we equate it to being forcefully, risky because we're jumping out of a plane expecting this piece of string and nylon to save our life every time. But they're designed in a way that they're stupid proof. Like you can jump out of a plane and just say, I want to commit suicide, and the parachute's going to open by itself. Mm-hmm. You can't stop that. Now you can if you actually, purposely try to, on the ground, turn off the device that activates the reserve. But, no matter what happens when people have collisions in air, which has happened in the past, they find themselves waking up on the ground somewhere completely intact, barely a bruise on them because they hit the ground soft under a parachute and when they landed, they were very, relaxed. So when people are relaxed, they ragdoll and they don't hurt anything. It's when you put your hands out, you can break an arm or leg or, something like this. So it's a safe sport at the end of the day. And statistically speaking, you're going to die more on a chance on their way to the drop zone. So
yeah, it's the kind of sport where, you know, if it goes wrong, it can go wrong catastrophically. It just doesn't go wrong very often. You know, so I think that's the part that people sort of see, right? Like if everything that could go wrong went wrong, you're fucked. But, you know, and that's the same thing, like, you know, that we'll run into with any of the other sports. But the fact is that doesn't happen very often, right? So
no, I'm one of a very small group of skydivers in the world who've survived what they call a double malfunction. When your main fails and your reserve fails, like there's less than 20 of us in the entire world, maybe less. And I've only seen 2 videos of people with double malfunctions survive. Because I mean, nobody's posting anyone's death either, right? Yeah. But fatality wise on dropzone.com, I don't know. I know the group of people that have had a malfunction and survived is super small. So I always think about that in the back of my mind sometimes. I'm like, you really got off lucky, you know?
So Kris,
but I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
If you're not afraid to get back on the plane, what are you afraid of?
What am I afraid of? That's a good question. You know, and then it's funny because like I don't like looking over the edge of my balcony, even though I'm on the 20th floor. It gives me the willies. I don't, you know, there's some videos of guys climbing an antenna in the middle of nowhere, and they have this hook and they climb up and they're changing a bulb and it's like 1,500 feet above the ground or something crazy. Oh, I could never do that. I don't want to go stand on the edge of the CN tower. I won't go in a helicopter.
Oh, really?
But if you put a parachute on my back, I will go anywhere.
Okay, hang on. I think I have a bit of a warped sense of. So when I was afraid of heights, I actually wanted to go parachuting because the idea of being in a plane and you see the cars that look like little toy cars didn't seem real to me. So I thought, yeah, I could do that. I wouldn't go on my own. I'd have to go tandem, but I would do it. But I had developed a fear that I couldn't even walk on the glass floor of the CN tower or jump off a 16-foot high diving board, make everybody get down off the ladder, or stupid things like that, right? Or go on a train track bridge, even if it was like a platform, like that would really scare me. Or yeah, but I've gotten used to it. Is it because having a parachute, you have the gear and you feel safe? Or if you had a harness and you were at the edge of CN Tower, would you do that? Like if you had a harness or no?
Yeah, so no, I don't like the feeling I get in my core from being up there, because I don't know the equipment that is holding everything together on the edge of the CN Tower.
Okay.
It's like when you're in a car or if you're in a truck, if you were to get into a car accident, you kind of have this sense of security because you're in this vehicle and you're safe, airbags and things of that nature. Sure, you can be a little bit scared, but the parachute for me, because I pack it, I know every inch, I know how everything works. I understand the physics involved. I know how to deal with situations with it, like I clearly have. It adds a sense of security. Now, like, you know, a low flying helicopter, you're not getting out of, if it crashes, you can easily die. But once you're at altitude, like once I'm over 1,000 feet, I don't care where I am. Like you want to do loops, I'll be on any plane, anything, hot air balloon, I don't care. The parachute gives me a sense of security because I understand it, I own it, I control it, I've maintained it. Whereas the things that on the CN Tower, I don't control that. Oh, maybe the guy doing the maintenance forgot to check the cotter pin on one of these harnesses. And like, I go to use it that day and I slept off the edge and I'm dead. Like that part, that unknown, it gives me a sense of like, that scares me. It's such an interesting concept to be scared in certain things. But, you know, like most of us, we are often scared by things we don't understand or can't control, right?
Yeah. How long? So 700 jumps over that. How many years does that take?
I was up to almost 700 in, I want to say 2018. So because each year I was probably doing somewhere in the area of about 100 skydives. Because I would travel to the States in the wintertime and I would spend Christmas with friends and I would skydive New Year's Eve at nighttime and fly my parachute into a landing area with fireworks and fun stuff. And, you know, there's so many things to do and places to travel outside of Canada to skydive during the winter season. So I would do that a lot. But obviously COVID sort of put a damper on that for like it has for many of us. We haven't traveled. So the jump numbers have really dropped off. And then after my accident, I took a whole year off before I even skydived again. Because I just, my doctor was like, just give it a year before you jump again. And I was like, sure, no problem. So instead of, doing that, I was out backcountry snowboarding out in Whistler
Nice.
and, risking danger there because it wasn't as hard on my back, So, 700 skydives, 750 now or something like that. But I've kind of lost a little bit of the interest in it. I feel like I've done so many things that the only thing I can do now is really get to what they call ninja level. And that's like being able to fly dynamic freestyle in the sky. And that takes a lot of investment in time and resources, money that I just don't know if I really care to. I'm like very ADD when it comes to like, sports and just hobbies and things. Like right now I'm, over COVID, I've sort of switched gears and now I'm no longer snowboarding. Now I'm skiing. I learned to ski in the wintertime and I'm refurbishing pinball machines of all things. Like I'm just going down all these different paths and just doing things that I like doing. I'm like at a buffet. I'm like, I don't like that. I want to try that now. Like, I'm switching gears all the time. And you know what I haven't done, which I would like to try is rock climbing. I haven't done that. And I have friends who do that too.
Yeah. And we live in such a great area for it. I mean, limestone's hard.
Yeah. If you learn to climb in Southern Ontario, you're set to go anywhere.
You're a rock star elsewhere,
Really?
Yeah.
Our rock, it's not big, but it's challenging and it's
Glassy.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where when you get to any rock like sandstone, granite that have more texture, more grip, where it's not just relying on your strength, but like the friction of your skin on the rock or the friction of the rubber on the rock, it feels so much more secure.
Sure. If it's slippery, it's scary, right?
Yeah.
And it's just harder. Yeah. Right. But we've got a great climbing community here. And so Winston's been doing it since the 80s, right? Something like that.
Oh, you just aged the guy. What do you way to go?
Everybody knows, like, we already talked about turning 50 this year. So, yeah.
I remember doing my first little bit of climbing, and that was like at DeQ Falls near where we used to both live. And I was like, oh, this is scary. I could fall. And now I'm just like, oh, man, this is nothing.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, but it's a lot of fun. It's great core workout, and just it's all good and good community. And for me, it was very much facing my fear and just becoming very comfortable of focusing and.
Yeah, because she went from like learning to climb here to going down to Red Rocks outside of Vegas, and
I haven't done it yet, but I definitely have that on my list. And when people ask me about skydiving, I always tell them like it's one of the most regulated things. Like, oh, I want to go parasailing down a boat. I'm like, guess what? Who set up that rope that day, and who's managing that boat, and like who tied up the lines? You have no idea. It's not a regulated, sport of any kind. And that's where you see these horror videos of people careening into a condo down in Jamaica because they were behind a boat and the rope broke or something happened, or they got lost at sea or they died. Mm-hmm. Whereas skydiving, when you get into it, you feel a sense of community. You feel like you're safe. People are always looking out for you. You have to dot your I's and cross your T's. You have to do all these, you have to do a test. You have to be able to pack your parachute. They're going to watch you pack it. They're going to tell you how you're doing it wrong. You're going to be doing so many things just so you can just do a skydive by yourself. And we always promote people skydiving indoors in a wind tunnel so they can learn how to fly their body safe, because a lot of times, most accidents happen because, they don't have their wits about them and they're, just spinning out of control or something like that. So it's definitely, a sport that I would consider safe beyond most other sports where you can participate and there's a level of risk.
Tell me, because I have knee issues, I have osteoarthritis, like really bad knees. So I try and avoid impact. Is that a risk or a challenge with parachuting?
No, I would say there's always somebody with a sore ankle, myself included. Even just last couple years ago when I was down in Florida jumping, you can come sliding in fast on your feet and roll your ankle. Now, and I go back up and skydive, and I'll just raise that ankle and come in. Pretty much everybody comes in and slides on their butt because they're coming in fast.
Yeah.
Or if they're coming in slow, you can land on one leg because the wind is keeping you. When you do your landing, you usually come in against the wind and you just sort of like whoop, plop down, right? Even on a tandem, if it's windy, you and the tandem are just barely touching the ground. Or if you come in, you're going to slide smooth. So you raise your legs when you're coming in on a tandem. Okay. You slide on your butt. So you could do it with a completely broken ankle and never hurt yourself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how did you get into it?
I've always wanted to, and like most of us who got into it years ago, and I would say more in maybe my age group, we all watched Point Break. And when you watch, they're flying over on their bodies, his arms are behind his head, and you're just like, this is incredible. Like the pure joy that they're feeling when they're in this skydive just comes off the screen, and you're mesmerized, and you're like, I want to do that. And they said back when that movie came out and was released, because I was fortunate enough to actually talk to Tom Sanders, who was the lead aerial videographer on that movie. So I feel like I'm part of, I was very starstruck talking to Tom. He was telling us that that movie inspired hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people to start skydiving that year. And although I'd seen it, I didn't have the money, resources, and I was still scared because I was like, roller coasters scare me, and I didn't want that stomachy butterfly feeling. But then a friend was at a drop zone up here north of Toronto, and I was DJing everywhere, and we were friends from that scene. And he was like, "You should come up and DJ. We're having a boogie tonight. A skydiving party is called a boogie." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'll come down there." I went down to the drop zone with a girl on a first date of all things, and I was like, "Let's go to the drop zone. I'm going to play some records later tonight. Maybe we'll go for a skydive. Maybe I'll have the courage." Anyways, I did my first skydive that day, and before I even went to the ground, I had my wallet, and I was like, let's go again. I want to get my license. This is the best thing ever. And from then on, that day, people were coming in their underwear on a skydive, hitting a slip and slide, getting wet, and then they had jello wrestling on like a trampoline, and they were doing a swoop and chug where they come skydiving in, and they grab a beer on landing and chug it. I'm like, what? This is adult Disneyland. I need to do this all the time. And so, when you're still looking for the next high and the next fun thing to do in life, and you encounter these bunch of misfits who are having the time of their lives, jumping out of planes, flying through the sky, you're just like immediately drawn in. And from that day on, I never left the drop zone. Every weekend I was there until, probably into the like 500 jump range before I finally started to teeter off a little bit, because I'd done so many different things, whether it's flying a hula hoop jump where we have a hula hoop, we fly through it in the air, a Mr. Potato Head where everyone comes and puts a piece on a Mr. Potato Head from some guy flying on their stomach. We do like wagon wheels. We fly a boat through the air and have everybody in the boat. Or we'll do toilet paper skydives where we have a guy flying on his back and he's shooting toilet paper rolls at people, and it's shooting laser beams off the end of his hands. You name it, we've kind of pretty much done it all. So there's so many facets to skydiving amongst the camaraderie and the the family side of it. It's cool.
So you clearly become obsessed with this, and for all good reason. Were you able to eventually turn it into an income and turn it into some kind of job, so you didn't have to keep dishing out money? Or
I think after the accident, because there was really only one really big demo group, it gave them kind of a black eye, because when you have an accident with a professional demo, people get cold feet about hiring you. They don't think it's safe. They don't want this negativity in their event, blah, blah, blah. They blamed me for loss of income. All these things. It's like anyone can have an accident. I don't know why this happened this way, but
yeah.
I don't really think it's something I'm going to pursue as an income anymore. And skydiving is one of those things where you can't just like, I think I'm going to go work this weekend and go do a few skydives. If I'm flying video for somebody who's doing their first tandem, usually depending on where I go, they know me there. They're comfortable with my skill level, my level of currency, how many jumps I've done, how often I fly video. and they'll let me do it. But for the most part, you have to be there week in and week out. And I'm doing too many things in life to want to devote my entire weekend, every weekend, or 3 weekends of a month for even at that point to skydiving. I want to do a lot of other different things. So it's not really something that you can do part-time like you would consider a part-time job. You have to be current, you have to be there, and you have to be experienced. And they want people that are safe. And you're only safe when you're constantly doing it. That's skydiving.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
So I did it for a little while, and it was fun bringing people for their first skydive and recording their video. And, I've had a couple of amazing moments where people cried their eyes because they had such a, epiphany when they got on the ground that they felt like that's such a release from a skydive. And it's beautiful. And it's one of the most exhilarating and rewarding parts of skydiving and bringing people into skydiving. But it's not something that I want to pursue as like a level of income anymore. It was sort of oh, cool, I got a few $100 here and a few $100 there from some video jumps. And that's really, that's where I kind of signed off on it after my accident. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore full time or even part time because demos are more part time.
Yeah.
So
and you're into music just a little.
Yeah, I mean, there's some records up here that I recorded from years ago, but that's another thing. I just, I liked it, but I never. It didn't become enough of a source of income to live off of, and it was a volatile lifestyle. So, I was always in IT and I was always in computers. I went to college for it, and I just decided to focus on that as a career and make all the other things I do in life, whether it's music, skydiving, or anything else that you can get some residuals from. Whether I do a ringtone for a phone company, or I did some Foley for a few TV commercials, or do some mastering or things of that nature. It's just sort of pocket money and nice to have. It's not something I would rely on or
be a slave to.
Yeah. It's so much more rewarding when you're not relying on it. You're just like, one day I can literally be sitting and hear a couple of notes of a song and go, oh my God, I'm going to go home. And I went and remixed a song and did it in 3 days and ended up putting it out. And that was rewarding and fun because it was inspirational, not because the guys gave me, $10,000. I need to pump out 5 remixes by a certain date. That pressure really doesn't breed a level of artistry that I can fall into. It was so stressful.
Not unless you're on something, I think.
Yes, that might help, but
yeah.
People are tapping on their watch, going, "I paid you. I need this. I need this product now." Even doing graphic design, which I do graphic design on the side for a lot of pinball guys that are doing pinball and refurbishing them. I do some graphics for them, and even them, just them waiting on some of the stuff that I do. I need them to back away and give me my time, and I always put in a big buffer. Give me a month, and I'll have you something done, because that pressure it doesn't become fun anymore, and I don't want things to lose appeal. I want them to be fun.
Well, I think that's one of the big things too with anything that requires creativity. Is you have no control over when the good ideas come.
Yeah.
Obviously you gotta sit down and put your time in, and it's do your reps. But at the same time, I write, and yes, I can write to a deadline, but you ain't always gonna get my most inspired stuff if it's I've got to have it done in 3 days. Whereas when I work with people and I can do something and then come back to it and then go, oh, maybe move this around. And, when you just leave me the fuck alone, trust that I know what I'm doing, you'll end up getting much better quality stuff. Right. But it's sort of like anything. When they treat you like the guy who would come in and install the dishwasher or fix your toilet, which aren't creative endeavors. They're just you paid for work and the work is done on a timeline.
And that's why I like IT, because when I'm working, people don't critique how I'm doing it. They don't have a clue what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I could tell them that I'm repairing the flux capacitor and, they're fine with it. Okay, cool. And if you Google news crew drop zone accident flux capacitor, one of the drop zones who was fed up of the media bugging them about, a sad incident where someone got hurt or died or an incident happened. They literally, word for word, told her, and she reported on air that this drop zone is reporting that their plane crashed because of a flux capacitor failure. And it's on Google. And it's the funniest thing because you can convince anybody of anything if they haven't got a clue what they're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So during COVID, you got into downhill skiing?
Yeah, I'd always wanted to learn to ski, and I was like, why didn't I ever learn to ski? And I broke my BOA on my snowboard boot when I was backcountry snowboarding with a girl I was dating, and she's a really good skier, and she was in heaven there. She was loving it. I'm like, you know what? You teach me to ski. I don't want to fix my boot. I don't want to replace my boots. Let's go rent some skis. And she's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And because she's a good skier, and I think because I play ice hockey, the parallel feet thing is kind of natural. And I took to skiing in like a day. And then I don't think I'm going to snowboard this year. I'm just going to ski. And so now I'm going to, book a trip and go out West and learn and, do some proper in the glades kind of thing and do some more skiing, take on another new expensive hobby.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. We got into mountain biking, or I did with my kids, because you've been doing it for a while. You've been teaching us, and I love it. I actually like it more than rock climbing, I think.
Because the thing is with mountain biking, you get to do more of it. With climbing, it's like you climb, and then the other person climbs, and then there's moving around to the next climb.
Well, if you're with my kids, then it's me blaming them, because I don't trust them blaming me.
No,
because they're not.
I equate that to surfing. I learned to surf in Costa Rica, but I really didn't like it. But I love wake surfing behind the boat because I feel like, surfing out on the ocean, I'm kind of scared of sharks. B, it's so much work and not enough reward. You're like, oh, I'm up. Oh, okay, I'm down. And now I got to paddle for a while and I'm exhausted. I'm kind of like, I'm an instant gratification kind of person.
How do you do that?
First of all, it's all about the boat. It's a V-drive boat. It has a weighted ballast in the rear, so the boat is sort of pushed into the water, and it's creating basically a divide in the water, and it's creating the wake behind it. And you need a good boat to do this. But you pull yourself out of the water with a short rope, and if you're sitting in the water with your life jacket, you put your heels on the board. If this is the water. And as the boat pushes you forward, you push down on the board and the boat flips up against the water. And then you pull yourself and you're on top of the water. And as you turn and go towards the boat, you just throw the rope in and now you're just surfing behind the wave that continuously is created by the boat.
Got it.
And then from there, it's just about getting balance and learning how to move forward and backward in the wake with your gas and your brake, rear foot, front foot.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. And you're only going like 10 miles an hour. So you fall, You're like, oops, I'm wet. Like,
yeah.
Great.
Not so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wakeboarding's a little more serious, a little faster. And when you catch an edge and you like whack your face or your head, it's a little more of a rattle.
Yeah. Yeah. But parachuting, would you ever do that?
My thing with it has always been the whole process, like whether I would get into it enough to do it on my own, right? Because obviously you start with tandem jumps and like that really doesn't interest me. Like it's the same thing like why I have no interest in doing Everest, right? It has to be guided. I like adventures on my own, right? And then
I think it's something you have to try once and then decide. And a tandem feels, because you're in front, a tandem feels like a real skydive.
And then the other part is just, do I have room for like what hobby am I going to give up?
Well, just to try it.
Yeah, but if I like it, then what hobby am I going to give up?
Well, my friends who are longtime skydivers are hardcore rock climbers, and they balance the two. But I mean, if you don't have a hobby that dominates your summer, and you can fit it in, like skydiving is one of those things where you will start going full steam and then you will fade off as you become more and more experienced. Like now I can basically, with a D license, it's the highest license you can get, and all these ratings, I can go anywhere in the world and just decide I can borrow a rig and go for a jump. I show my credentials it's no big deal. If I'm doing anything with like other people in bigger groups, then yeah, there's a little more involved and you won't be able to participate, but it's not something that would dominate your life or you'd have to give up a sport.
Yeah.
Like you've expressed interest in it. Why haven't you done?
Well, I was concerned more recently because of my knees, right? Because I thought that because it doesn't take much to jar them. I'm a lot stronger now. I can now.
I would say they would definitely say, heal first. I mean, unless you have a really, like, so what the girl that hurt her back and who was a paraplegic now, she still has like 60% use of her legs. But she can't like come in on a landing. So she just sort of lands and like skids on her bum.
Yeah.
So you don't have to rely on, landing on your ankles and your feet and that jarring motion.
But one of the things I really want to do also is hang gliding.
Yeah. I'd love to try that. It makes me a little bit nervous because I've seen some squirrely like hand gliding situations, but I'm kind of gravitating more towards I think paragliding now, where you kind of just have your harness and that sort of elliptical, really tall elliptical parachute, and you kind of walk down a mountain and you can just fly thermals and go around in circles along the coast. That's my next one, I think. And then you can do that in the mountains and the valleys and
I know somebody I work with who's competitive hang glider, and it's a lot of concentration.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, a lot of sports, especially when you're flying anything through the sky, there's a level of concentration and experience you need to have there. Because even those parachutes, if you watch videos online, things can get really out of control with turbulence and things that you don't see really quickly. And so there's emergency procedures involved that you need to be able to like be on the ball and recover and react and save your life.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, Kris, thanks for being on and sharing with us your experience, giving us a little glimpse of parachuting life and getting through it.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Cheers.
See you later.
Take care.